Remember Dražen as a man who brought joy to you, his smile. Treasure those moments of Dražen forever. Destiny took him away from us, probably at the peak of his career, to make him to become a legend, to show us the way. Wherever he played basketball, from the Olympics, Spain, to Portland, to New Jersey, ordinary people have great memories of how he touched their lives, both on and off the court. He had the statistics. Yes, he once scored 112 points in a game. Yes, he was MVP of different leagues. And yes, he averaged 20 points a game for the Nets in the NBA while shooting over 50% from the field. But Dražen certainly was more than his famous three-point shot. He was one of the first to help make the game of basketball a truly a global sport.
Dražen Petrović was born October 22, 1964 in Šibenik, Yugoslavia, which is today known as Croatia. Dražen was the second child to Jovan Petrović, a police officer, and Bizerka, a librarian. Dražen was enamored with the game of basketball at a very young age, like most basketball prodigies. Dražen's childhood best friend, Neven Spahia, who is now a pro basketball coach for an Italian team, would recall times when they would watch fuzzy NBA games from an Italian television. He said that they both thought that walking the moon seemed easier than playing in the NBA. Dražen, however, was blessed with an older brother named Alexander, who was 5 years older than him and pretty good at basketball himself. Way better than he was at the time, playing in a local youth club in the small town of Šibenik. Dražen would chase down rebounds from his older brother whenever he worked on his game, and by the age of 10, Dražen was starting to grow into his body pretty nicely. There was one problem though. He couldn't shoot at all. His older brother Alexander would actually describe his jump shot similar to Fred Flintstone, and that his shots could break stones. So what did Dražen do? If you watch my videos on other former NBA stars, you know what he started to do. He got to work. His mother would actually help him get a key to the school gym, and he would arrive at the school as early as 6 a.m., putting himself through dribbling drills and then taking 500 shots before class. He would then go to practice after school. Then after he got done with his homework, he went back into the school gym to get even more shots up and go through more drills. Neven, his best friend, would say that Dražen would spend 7 hours a day in that gym. He literally could not get enough of the game of basketball. You practice too much. Why don't you do something else? Dražen always said, I love this. This is my life, like breathing. It was no accident that this dude Dražen was about to become something special. At the age of 13, Dražen would start playing in the youth selection of the club of Šibenik. At the age of 15, he already made the club's first team, and at the same time, Šibenka would be promoted to the Yugoslav First Division. You could probably guess by the time this dude was 18, he was nice, really nice. He would average over 24 points per game for his team, including hitting 2 clutch free throws in the club's championship game to help win them the Yugoslavian League Championship. Petrović wasn't just good, however, he had some stuff to him too. Off the court, Dražen was known as a soft-spoken mama's boy, but on the court, he was well known for his trash talking on both sides of the floor. Even when he would play his brother Alexander, he would taunt him, announcing to him what move he was going to make, Larry Bird style, and go on to score on him anyways. Alexander's team was superior, with them being the league's premier team, but Dražen would often outplay his brother in these games. When his mother asked him to back off a little bit, he would reply, "If you can't take it, don't come to the games." But he remembered when Alexander said his shot looked like Fred Flintstone. Dražen was starting to build a name for himself so much that Digger Phelps, the head coach of Notre Dame at the time, begged the kid to come to Notre Dame to play with his team in America. Despite the offer, Dražen decided he wanted to stay close to home and sign with Cibona for the 84-85 season, the team Alexander has been playing for the last few years. In his first season with the squad, he would help lead Cibona to the Yugoslav League Championship and the Yugoslav National Cup title while averaging over 32 points per game for the team. In the same year during the FIBA European Champions Cup, which would eventually become the Euro League, Petrović would help lead Cibona to their very first European Champions Cup title, beating Real Madrid while dropping 36 points. Keep in mind, this is considered to be the highest level of competition in Europe, and he was probably considered to be the best player in Europe, barely being even 20 years old. There was a game on October 5th, 1985, where Petrović would infamously score 112 points in one game. The record for the league was initially 74 points, set in 1962, and Dražen nearly scored that in the first half, scoring 67 points before even heading into the locker room. That night, he shot 40 of 60 from the field, made 10 out of 20 of his three-point attempts, and converted on all 22 of his free throw attempts as well. Now, there's more context that goes into how he scored that 112 points. Union Olimpija Ljubljana, the team Dražen torched for 112 points, failed to fill out their player registration in time for the game. Due to the general manager being late to submitting the player registration letters, they were ineligible to play any of their players on their first team's roster, the first game of the season, forcing them to play their players from the youth system. Despite that, Dražen would still go on to average over 40 points per game for their entire season, leading Sabona to another Yugoslav national title cup, along with the second straight European Championship Cup title, this time being Zalgiris Kaunas, which was led by legendary Arvydas Sabonis. After the 1986 season, the Portland Trail Blazers would use a third-round pick on the Yugoslavian star. This was Dražen's chance to live out a lifelong dream, the dream that him and his best friend Nevin used to think walking on the moon would be easier to achieve. Despite the opportunity, Dražen wasn't sure he wanted to even make the transition. He would continue to play for Sabona for 2 more years, racking up more accolades before it became clear that he was just simply too good for this competition and it was time for him to move on to something different. The Trailblazers offer was still available to him, but Dražen still wasn't sure he even wanted to play in the States. I don't know. I'm not sure. NBA is a big challenge, but dangerous too. Here in Europe, I'm a star. Over there, who knows? No, it's not a lack of confidence. I always have confidence, but will I get a right chance? In fact, I still have time. For now, I'll stay in Europe. Instead of making the transition to the NBA, Dražen would decide to sign a $4 million contract with Real Madrid, one of the most recognizable teams in all of Europe. In his one season with Real Madrid, he would lead them to the European Cup title. Dražen would score 62 points in his final game versus Caserta, adding to his legend in Europe. People were calling this man the European Michael Jordan, the Mozart of basketball, and deservedly so. He was really a special talent. As you've seen from the highlights so far, Petrović often played below the rim, so the comparison to MJ really wasn't accurate. In my opinion, he reminded me more of a Pete Maravich or a Manu Ginobili. A lethal offensive weapon, a sharpshooter with the ability to also get to the rim. He was a very crafty and capable ball handler and used it to get to his spots on the floor. He loved to use the spin move a lot, but it was effective and he kept defenders off balance with it. He also had great court vision, with him being able to set up his teammates whenever the defense paid too much attention to his threat to score. What made Dražen special, however, was he had the work ethic and the will to be great that so many greats had. We talked about it back when he was in school, when he would spend 7 hours a day working on his craft. He was the first one in the gym and the last one out of the gym. It was no accident he became this lethal of a scorer in Europe. He put the time in and wanted to be great. After winning another European Cup, Dražen came to the realization that there was literally nothing left for him to prove in Europe. He had proven to probably be the greatest scorer to ever touch a basketball floor in Europe. The only thing he had left to prove was that he was good enough to play in the best league in the world, the NBA. I have nothing more to accomplish here, Dražen told his mother. If I want to be the best, I must go play with the best. Before Dražen, the reputation of international players wasn't the best. The NBA was always dominated by American-born players. There wasn't many international superstars roaming around the NBA like there were today. The international players who were in the NBA were either big men or players who traveled to the States to play in college. It was very uncommon for a European player to make the transition to the NBA by only playing in the EuroLeague. It was simply viewed as inferior competition. Scouts thought that the gap in athleticism was simply too much to overcome. It wouldn't be the athleticism that would be Dražen's biggest obstacle. The biggest obstacle would be him just getting the opportunity to show what he can do. After Portland spent $1.5 million to buy Dražen out of his contract, he would only see the court sparingly, being limited to only playing 12 minutes a game in a spot-up shooter role. It's not surprising that his role would be more of a complementary role, considering that Portland had Clyde Drexler and Terry Porter established as the team's starting backcourt. However, we see from his highlights back when he was in Europe, a spot-up shooting role was not Dražen's style of play. Dražen was a lethal shooter, yes, but he was also a creator, someone who was best with the ball in his hands, having the freedom not just to create scoring opportunities for himself, but for others as well. After his rookie season, his role would be reduced even further after the Blazers acquired Danny Ainge, with his playing time now being just around 7 minutes a game. With him literally seeing less than a quarter of action a game, it wasn't surprising that Dražen was miserable in Portland. This is what Dražen had to say about his head coach Rick Adelman and his situation in Portland when asked by reporters. I have nothing to say to Adelman anymore and vice versa. 18 months has passed by too long. I have to leave to prove how much I am worth. Never in my life did I sit on the bench, and I don't intend to do that in Portland. It honestly was just a tough situation for both parties. Portland at this time was a contending team with the chance to win an NBA championship, and and Dražen was capable to help contribute to the team's championship aspirations. The problem was that Dražen was sort of overqualified for the role they were trying to force him into. What they were asking him to do wasn't what he came to America to do. He didn't leave his home country to come to the NBA to win an NBA championship. He came to prove that he was capable of being a perennial all-star caliber player, and he wasn't going to be able to do that playing just 7 minutes off the bench. After 38 grueling games for Dražen, where he wouldn't see a minute of action in the last 20 of them, he was eventually traded to the New Jersey Nets, a team who was far away from contention, with them not even reaching the playoffs in the last 5 years. This was easily the best thing that happened to Dražen. He immediately went from not seeing the floor at all at Portland to playing at least 20 minutes a night with the Nets. Following the successful end to the 90-91 season, the Nets decided they wanted to see what they had with the foreign star, inserting him to the starting lineup at the start of the 91-92 season. Once they put Dražen in the starting lineup, they couldn't take him out. He became the team's best offensive player. He would play and start in every single game during the 91-92 season and lead the team in scoring, averaging over 20 a game. Not only will he just lead the team in scoring, but he will also help lead the team back into the postseason, qualifying as a 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. The team would be bounced early in the first round by the Cavs, mostly due to inexperience. But even in the postseason, Dražen upped his scoring average by 4 points in the playoffs, including a 40-point masterpiece in his playoff debut, proving that his breakout season was not a fluke, and he was capable of scoring even against the intense NBA playoff defense. Even after a successful 91-92 season, Dražen's most impressive accomplishment was yet to come. During the summer of 92, Petrović would make his debut at the Olympics with the Croatian national team. This would be the same summer that the United States would form the infamous Dream Team. This would be the only team that the Croatian national team would lose to during the entire Olympic Games, thanks in part to Dražen playing at such a high level throughout the entire Olympics. In the semifinal game against the Soviet Union, Petrović would hit 2 clutch free throws, sending the Croatian team to the gold medal game against the United States. Now, Croatia would get crushed by 32 points by the Dream Team, but that was the closest margin anyone had lost by the US in the entire Olympic Games. And Dražen would lead all scorers in the game, scoring 24 points, which honestly should tell you everything about this dude's mindset. He just didn't care. He didn't care if he was outmatched or what the odds were. He really felt like that he was the best player on the court at all times and was going to play his game no matter who the opposition was. Croatia would win the silver medal, and considering how no team really had a chance in these Olympic Games, it was the most impressive silver medal in Olympic game history in my opinion. After his impressive showing at the Olympics, Dražen's confidence was at an all-time high, and he had another great season in the 92-93 NBA regular season, upping his scoring averages again over 22 points a game. Him and the Nets would find themselves in a similar playoff scenario as last season, meeting up with the Cavs in the first round. The teams would trade wins each game leading up into a decisive Game 5, where the Nets would fall to the Cavs again by 10 points in Cleveland, sending them home in the first round in back-to-back years. Despite the disappointing exit, Petrović had proven himself to be able to succeed in the NBA. People genuinely questioned whether or not his game could translate into this league. They thought that the players would be too athletic in Europe, and that he wouldn't be able to defend these athletes. And over again, he would prove his doubters wrong and continue to add on to his impressive legacy. But unfortunately, like most of you are very aware of, this is the part of the story where tragedy strikes. Late into the 1993 regular season, a young woman would place a call to the New Jersey Nets front office. Her name was Clara Zelansky. Clara was a 23-year-old model and international basketball player who was pretty attractive. She called the Nets front office wanting to meet up with Dražen, with her being a huge fan of his. She requested his phone number, which the Nets front office obviously declined to share, so she opted instead to leave her number for Dražen to reach out to her himself. Dražen would receive the number and would call Clara, with her answering the phone from her hotel room where she was staying with her friend. After talking for a little while and making sure she wasn't a creep, Dražen would offer Clara and her friend tickets to that night's game, which they gladly accepted. After the game, Dražen and his friend Mario Miojic went out to dinner with the two girls, and that's when Dražen really became interested in Clara unusually quickly. Dražen was normally comfortable in these situations meeting up with fans, but there was something different about Clara. There was clearly connection by both parties. Clara and her friend were supposed to head back to Europe after just 2 nights in New York. Clara's friend went back to Europe, but Clara decided to extend her stay in New York for a week to spend more time with Dražen. After that week was up, there was definitely a mutual attraction built between the two, but it wasn't necessarily a relationship yet. Despite that, after Clara left for Europe, the two would continue to be in contact with one another, with Dražen reportedly sending Clara flowers for a special occasion, so it was obvious that there was something building between the two. Dražen would actually talk to Mario about traveling to Germany during the summer to spend more time with Clara and meet her friends and family, while exploring the possibility of there maybe being a relationship between the two. Dražen would have to make the trip to Germany anyways due to the Croatian national team playing in a qualifying tournament for the FIBA European Championships, also known as Eurobasket. Instead of opting to fly with the team to Munich for their qualifying game, Dražen decided to make alternative travel arrangements, with him wanting to ride with Clara and another one of her friends she played basketball with in the past. Before starting the journey to Munich, it was nearly a perfect day to go on the drive, with the sun shining and the temperature being a perfect 79 degrees. However, as the afternoon went on, storms began to close in, causing the roads to become a little bit more slick than usual. Clara, Dražen, and her friend had been traveling south along Autobahn 9 towards Munich, and at some point during the trip, Dražen decided that he was tired and fell asleep in the passenger seat. While they were on their way to Munich at around 5:20 p.m. Central European Time, a truck driver who was also traveling on the same highway was forced to swerve and avoid a car that was aquaplaning and moving towards his lane. The truck driver swerved off the road and broke through a barrier that separated the northbound and southbound traffic. With him realizing that he was blocking off the 3 lanes on the southbound highway, the truck driver attempted to prevent a collision from the ongoing traffic by getting out of his vehicle and directing ongoing traffic until he could get help to arrive. Now, at the time, there was no speed limit in Germany while you were driving on the highway. Clara was reportedly driving around 112 miles per hour before approaching the truck that was blocking off all the lanes on the southbound highway. By the time Clara saw the situation, she tried her best to avoid the truck by hitting the brakes as soon as she could, but even if the conditions were dry, traveling that fast, the car would not be able to stop immediately, let alone it being in the middle of a storm. Clara would lose control of the vehicle with it bouncing off the guardrails before reaching the truck and slamming on the passenger side where Dražen was located, taking a nap. Clara's friend was in the back seat, and on impact, she was thrown into the front seat, causing her to break her arm, her right hip, and causing serious brain damage. Despite that, both Clara and her friend would make it out of the wreck alive. However, for Dražen, who wasn't wearing a seatbelt at the time, on impact, he was thrown straight into the direction of the truck, causing irreparable brain trauma. He died instantly on impact. He was just 28 years old. Once the Croatian national team got word of his untimely death, the team was absolutely devastated. Heck, forget the national team. When the entire nation of Croatia heard the news, the whole country was devastated, along with the New Jersey Nets organization. The same way that we were all shocked when our hero Kobe died back in 2020, that was Croatia's Kobe Bryant. Sometimes I feel like us as people look at these athletes and these celebrities who are extremely gifted at what they do, with all the resources in the world at their disposal, that they're almost invincible and that they don't deal with the same risk as a regular person does on a daily basis. But this is just another example of how precious life really is and how it can really be taken from you, and it can be completely out of that person's control. Dražen didn't get into a disagreement with anybody, he didn't get involved in the wrong crowd, he didn't get hooked on any drugs and overdose, he wasn't even the one driving the car. He was just asleep, traveling with someone he genuinely enjoyed spending time with, and a freak accident just occurred. The New Jersey Nets will hold a press conference the next morning with GM Willis Reed saying that, "To me, it's like losing a son." Chuck Daly, the head coach of the Nets, would step forward to say a few words as well, speaking about how impressed he was with Dražen's competitiveness, specifically against the Dream Team the previous summer. And even though they had occasional conflicts, that he ultimately had to overlook those conflicts because of the passion and the commitment he had towards the game. You can't get mad at a player like that, no way, because he did everything for the right reason. After his death, Dražen's legacy would be honored numerous times, most famously being a 13-foot statue built in Zagreb with the opening of the Dražen Petrović Memorial Center, and with him being enshrined to the FIBA Hall of Fame. Dražen Petrović was an icon. He didn't get a chance to make as big of an impact in the NBA as he probably wanted to, but in Europe, and especially Croatia, he was the guy. He didn't single-handedly change the perspective of international players in the NBA, but he was a big part in doing that. This dude was the real deal. Rest in peace to the legend. That's the end of the video. Let me know in the comments what you think about Dražen Petrović. Also, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching until the end. Until next time, it's your boy Said, and I'm out. Peace.